Kody Brown screams, "Where is the loyalty?" But what he doesn't say is that his own eldest son, Logan, has stopped taking his calls. Why did Logan make such a drastic decision? Is it just the busy life of a newlywed with a demanding career? Or is it a calculated move for his own mental peace? Is Logan Brown giving his father Cody the gray rock method, a psychological technique of becoming as unresponsive as a stone to a narcissist? In today's deep dive, we are going to explore the reports and exclusive theories that suggest Logan's silence isn't just silence. It's a powerful message and perhaps Cody's biggest punishment. We're about to uncover a digital blockade that has sent shockwaves through the Brown family. A blockade you haven't seen on TV. If you are ready to look past the TLC narrative and explore the raw, unfiltered truth that's tearing this family apart, then you've come to the right place. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give this video a like, because you are not going to want to miss a single second of the explosive revelations we have coming. This is the story the producers don't want you to know. Let's start with the drama that has become Kody Brown's signature tune in the later seasons of Sister Wives, the lament of the abandoned patriarch. We've all seen the clips. Cody, with his brow furrowed and his voice cracking with supposed emotion, looking into the camera and complaining, "The kids don't call me." We saw it during the tense holiday seasons where he'd sit in Robyn's grand house, surrounded by the children he deems loyal, and bemoan the silence from his other households. Christmas came and went, and not a single call from some of them, he'd claim. We heard it around his birthday, a day he feels should be a national holiday within the family, where the lack of tribute calls and texts becomes a referendum on his fatherhood. He paints a picture of a loving father, desperately waiting by the phone for any sign of affection from his estranged offspring, a victim of his wives turning his children against him. But what if that's not the truth? What if that's only one side of a very twisted story? What if the phone isn't silent because the children are rebellious, but because the father is relentless? Reports from sources allegedly close to the family paint a starkly different picture. These insiders suggest that for years, a phone call from Cody wasn't a pleasant check-in. It was a summons. It was an interrogation. It was often a prelude to a lecture, a guilt trip, or an all-out verbal assault. The narrative Cody sells is one of paternal yearning, but the reality for the children, especially the older ones who have tasted freedom, was allegedly one of emotional exhaustion. Let's focus on Logan, the firstborn, the trailblazer. Logan has always been depicted as the responsible, level-headed son. He was the first to leave the nest, the first to build a life completely independent of the chaotic Brown family circus. He pursued higher education, embarked on a serious career, and married his longtime love, Michelle. On the surface, he is the family's greatest success story. But beneath that success lies a story of quiet rebellion, a rebellion that is now playing out through his call log. A fascinating report that has been circulating in closed fan groups, allegedly originating from a crew member who overheard a heated conversation, details what might have been the final straw for Logan. The story goes that after a particularly stressful family event, Cody called Logan not to see how he was, but to demand why he hadn't done more to control his mother, Janelle. According to this alleged source, Cody accused Logan of being disloyal for not forcing Janelle to comply with his strict COVID protocols and for not publicly defending him against the criticisms from Christine and their children. The call, which Logan supposedly took while on a break at work, escalated quickly. Cody wasn't looking for a conversation. He was looking for an ally, a soldier in his war against his own family. Logan, ever the pragmatist, supposedly tried to de-escalate, explaining that he was an adult with his own life and that he wouldn't be dragged into his parents' marital disputes. This, according to the report, was unacceptable to Cody. His tone allegedly shifted from demanding to downright accusatory. He questioned Logan's love, his upbringing, his very character. The call ended with Cody delivering a chilling ultimatum, something to the effect of, "You're either with me and my family or you're with them." For Logan, who had spent his entire life trying to be the peacemaker, the responsible one holding the fraying edges of his family together, this was a breaking point. The call didn't end with a goodbye or an "I love you." It ended with a click. And after that click, a profound silence began. This is where the digital blockade truly takes form. Initially, Logan may have just started screening Cody's calls, letting them go to voicemail. He was busy, after all. A new marriage, a demanding job. It was a plausible excuse. He could text back later, a short, non-committal message to keep the peace. But the insiders suggest Cody's response to being ignored was not to reflect, but to escalate. The single missed calls turned into a barrage of calls, one after another. The calls were followed by a flood of texts. These weren't loving messages. They were filled with manipulative language. "I guess your father doesn't matter anymore. I see Robyn's kids are the only ones who truly love me. Your mother has poisoned you against me." Each message was a digital dart designed to inflict guilt and provoke a response. Any response. Because for a personality like Cody's, negative attention is still attention. It's fuel. It confirms his importance in your life, even if it's as a source of pain. This is the classic behavior that psychological experts often associate with narcissistic personality traits. They create drama to remain the center of attention. They cannot handle being ignored because it is the ultimate invalidation. To them, silence is not peaceful. It is a declaration of war. It is a statement that you, the narcissist, no longer have power over their emotions. And this is the power move Logan appears to have made. After weeks of this escalating digital harassment, the theory goes that Logan finally did what he felt he had to do for his own sanity. He pressed the block button. Imagine Cody's experience. He picks up his phone full of righteous indignation, ready to unleash another tirade or a guilt-laden monologue. He dials Logan's number, the number he has called 1,000 times before. But this time, it doesn't ring and ring until voicemail picks up. It goes straight to a generic message. Or perhaps it just beeps. The call instantly terminated. He tries again. Same result. He sends a text. The blue bubble turns a sickly green. The delivered notification never appears. In that moment, the power dynamic of their entire relationship shifted. The father, who had always demanded to be the center of his children's universe, was suddenly locked out. He had been digitally excommunicated by his firstborn son. This act is more profound than any shouting match. A shouting match still implies engagement. It implies that the other person's words have the power to affect you. Blocking someone is a statement of utter indifference. It says, you no longer exist in my digital world. Your anger, your guilt, your drama, it cannot reach me here. I am immune. For a man like Cody, who thrives on control and emotional reaction, this is an unthinkable torment. It's a rejection far deeper than a disagreement. It's a rejection of his very relevance. The phone call drama Cody performs for the cameras is, therefore, a carefully constructed lie of omission. He laments the silence, but never reveals his role in creating it. He doesn't tell the audience that his calls became so toxic that his son had to create a digital fortress to protect his peace. He doesn't mention the barrage of manipulative texts that likely preceded the block. He only presents the result, the silence, and frames himself as the heartbroken victim. It's a masterful piece of manipulation played out on a national stage. He's not just trying to convince the viewers, he's trying to convince himself to rewrite the narrative in his own head where he is the one who has been wronged. This theory also adds a crucial layer of context to Janelle's statements on the show. We see her telling Cody that his relationship with his children is his own to repair. We see her frustration when Cody tries to use her as an intermediary. She says things like, "You're a grown man, call your grown sons." But she knows, as does Logan, that it's not that simple. She understands that direct contact is no longer a healthy option. The problem isn't that Logan won't talk to Cody. The problem is that Logan can't talk to Cody without it becoming a destructive and painful experience. Think about the psychological toll this must have taken on Logan for years. Growing up, he was parentified, forced into a role of responsibility far beyond his years. He was the buffer, the big brother who looked after everyone. He witnessed the dysfunction, the fighting, the constant state of low-grade chaos that defined the Brown family. His decision to move away, to build a quiet, stable life with Michelle, was a conscious choice to break that cycle. The constant drama-filled calls from Cody were a tether back to that chaos, a digital leash pulling him back into the very dysfunction he had worked so hard to escape. Blocking the number wasn't just an act of anger, it was an act of survival. It was Logan, the adult, finally protecting Logan, the child who never could. So when you see Cody Brown on your screen complaining about his children's lack of loyalty and their silent phones, remember this alternative narrative. This is the story of the digital blockade. It's not just about missed calls on Christmas. It's about a son's desperate attempt to preserve his mental health from a father who, according to these but compelling reports, demands emotional turmoil as proof of love. The silence Cody complains about is a silence he allegedly cultivated through his own actions. And the most agonizing part for him, he knows it. Every time he sees that call failed message or that undelivered text, it's a fresh reminder that he has lost control. He has been muted. And that, for Cody Brown, is a fate worse than any argument. The war for loyalty is over, and in the case of his firstborn son, silence has won. This brings us to the deeper psychology at play, the silent battle of wills that goes far beyond a simple family squabble. We need to analyze the psychology of silence itself as a tool. And in this family's dynamic, it's not a passive act, but an offensive strategy. Cody wants drama. He is a man who seems to be emotionally regulated by conflict. It's how he connects, it's how he asserts dominance, and it's how he reaffirms his own importance. When he's fighting, he's the center of the universe. Everyone is reacting to him, thinking about him, strategizing around him. In his worldview, a family that is fighting with him is still a family that is focused on him. Logan, however, has chosen to give him the one thing he cannot handle: nothing. This is where the concept of the gray rock method becomes incredibly relevant. For those unfamiliar, going gray rock is a tactic used when dealing with manipulative or narcissistic individuals. The goal is to become as boring and unresponsive as a gray rock. You don't argue, you don't defend yourself, you don't explain your feelings. You give short, uninteresting answers. You make yourself a boring target. The narcissist, who feeds on emotional reactions, eventually gets bored and moves on to find a more stimulating source of supply. Logan, by blocking Cody, has taken this a step further. He has become a black hole. There is no information, no emotion, no response whatsoever. He has removed himself as a source of narcissistic supply entirely. Consider the power of an unanswered text in this context. Cody, feeling that familiar surge of anger or self-pity, types out a long, rambling message. It's a work of art in manipulation, likely weaving together accusations, feigned vulnerability, and demands for respect. He hits send. And nothing. The message floats in the digital void. He checks his phone minutes later. No reply. An hour later, still nothing. The lack of a response is more infuriating than any angry text Logan could have sent back. An angry text would have been a victory for Cody. It would have meant he got under Logan's skin, that he still had the power to provoke an emotional reaction. That would have opened the door for more arguments, more drama, more engagement. But silence is a mirror. It forces Cody to sit with his own emotions, his own rage, with no outlet. The narrative he has constructed in his head, I am the victim, my children are ungrateful, begins to crumble when there's no one to fight with. The absence of Logan's response creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum, the only voice Cody can hear is his own. That can be a terrifying experience for someone who relies on external validation and conflict to define their reality. This is why, according to inside sources, Cody becomes frantic. He doesn't just get angry, he allegedly becomes obsessed. The lack of control drives him to a point of desperation. He needs to know what Logan is thinking. The not knowing is the real torture. This is a profound power move from Logan, whether he consciously labels it as such or not. He has learned that the only way to win Cody's game is not to play. By refusing to engage, he seizes control of the entire dynamic. Cody's power has always been rooted in his ability to command the emotional temperature of the family. He could stir the pot, create a crisis, and then position himself as the patriarch trying to solve it. Logan's silence effectively takes away Cody's matches. He cannot start a fire if there's no one willing to provide the kindling of a reaction. Furthermore, this silence is amplified by Logan's public persona, or rather, his lack thereof. Unlike some of his siblings who have a significant social media presence, Logan is intensely private. He doesn't post cryptic memes, he doesn't subtweet, he doesn't engage in public family drama. This deliberate privacy is another layer of his defense. Cody can't even go online to find clues about Logan's life or feelings. He is completely cut off from any information, which for a controlling personality is maddening. Logan has built a life that is truly his own, walled off from the reality TV cameras and his father's intrusive presence. He controls the flow of information, and he has turned that flow off at the source. This psychological warfare also has a devastating ripple effect. It sends a powerful message to the other siblings who are also struggling with their relationship with Cody. Logan, the eldest, the role model, has drawn a definitive line in the sand. He has demonstrated that it is possible to detach, that peace is attainable, but it requires a radical act of self-preservation. It shows them that they don't have to endure the endless cycles of guilt and manipulation. This is perhaps one of Cody's greatest fears, that Logan's rebellion is not an isolated incident, but the start of a revolution. If Logan, the golden boy, can cut him off, then anyone can. His entire patriarchal structure, built on a foundation of obligation and fear, is threatened by the quiet defiance of one son. The silence also fundamentally challenges Cody's self-perception. He has spent decades preaching about family, loyalty, and the patriarchal order. He is the leader, the head, the one who commands respect. Logan's blockade is a daily, silent refutation of all of it. It's a vote of no confidence from his own flesh and blood. Every unanswered call is a reminder that his authority is not absolute. Every undelivered text is proof that his emotional power has limits. He can rant and rave on television about loyalty, but the empty space where his son's name used to be in his call log tells the real story. And that is a story of failure, a narrative he cannot control or spin away. Logan's silence isn't just quiet, it's deafening. It screams of boundaries, of consequences, and of a peace that Kody Brown can no longer touch. This brings us to an even more humiliating and, for Kody, an existentially crushing consequence of Logan's digital blockade: the rise of the Gatekeeper. Logan is an adult, a married man with a career and a mortgage. He is, by all accounts, independent. But in the fractured landscape of the Brown family, he has an ally, a protector who has inadvertently become the guardian of his peace. That gatekeeper is his mother, Janelle Brown. Because Logan has made himself unreachable to Kody, a new, excruciating protocol has emerged. If Kody Brown wants to communicate with his firstborn son, he can no longer just pick up the phone. He has to go through Janelle. Let's pause and truly absorb the magnitude of this humiliation for a man like Kody. This is a man who has built his entire identity around the concept of patriarchy. He is the head of the family, the king of his castle, the one who dictates the terms of engagement. His wives and children were meant to be his subjects, seeking his approval, fearing his wrath, and above all, being accessible to him at all times. Now, in a stunning reversal of power, he finds himself on the outside looking in. To reach his own son, he must now approach the wife he has cast aside, the woman he has financially and emotionally neglected, and humbly ask for an audience. Reports from production insiders paint a picture of pure desperation. There have allegedly been instances where Kody has needed to contact Logan for logistical reasons, perhaps regarding an old family storage unit or a financial matter from the past. He goes through the motions. He dials the number he knows won't connect. He sends the text he knows will never be delivered. After stewing in his own frustration, he is left with only one option. He has to text or call Janelle. Imagine that conversation. It's no longer the commanding patriarch talking to his dutiful wife. It is a diminished man forced to ask for a favor. Janelle, the text might begin, stripped of its usual bluster. I need to talk to Logan about the old Vegas property titles. Can you have him call me? The request is simple, but the subtext is devastating. He is admitting defeat. He is admitting he has no direct line to his son. He is admitting that Janelle, the woman he publicly derided and disrespected, holds all the power in this particular dynamic. And how does Janelle respond? Based on her quiet strength and no-nonsense demeanor on the show, she likely handles it with a cool, detached efficiency that must infuriate Kody even more. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't use it as an opportunity to lecture him. She simply becomes a conduit of information, and a very filtered one at that. An inside source, allegedly privy to some of these exchanges, claims that Janelle's policy is simple. She will pass on necessary information, but she will not force a conversation. She might reply with a simple, I'll let him know you need to talk about the titles. She doesn't promise a callback. She doesn't make herself responsible for the outcome. She is no longer Kody's emotional manager or his family secretary. She is simply a messenger, and she performs this role on her terms. This act of gatekeeping is not a malicious one on Janelle's part. It's a protective one. She is honoring her son's boundaries. She knows the pain Kody has caused, and she is not going to be the one to force Logan back into the line of fire. She has created a buffer zone, a demilitarized zone where she controls the flow of communication to protect her child's well-being. In doing so, she has completely neutered Kody's ability to harass or manipulate Logan. Kody cannot send a barrage of texts to Janelle demanding Logan call him back. Janelle will simply ignore him. He cannot call her screaming and expect her to crumble. She will hang up. The gatekeeper is calm, rational, and immune to his tactics. This dynamic completely destroys Kody's ego. He is reduced to the level of a distant relative, having to go through an intermediary to speak to his own child. It's a public declaration of his failure as a father and a husband. Every time he has to contact Janelle to reach Logan, it is a fresh reminder of what he has lost. He has not only lost his son's respect and affection, but he has also lost the fundamental parental privilege of direct access. This loss of control is a core theme in Kody's downward spiral. He tried to control his wives, and 3 of them left. He tried to control his adult children, and they built walls he cannot breach. The gatekeeper dynamic with Janelle and Logan is the most potent symbol of his impotence. This situation also fuels the narrative within Kody and Robyn's home. You can be certain that Robyn frames this as Janelle engaging in parental alienation. They likely sit on their sofa and talk about how Janelle is poisoning the children against him, actively working to keep him from his son. It fits their victim narrative perfectly. It allows Kody to avoid any self-reflection. In his mind, the problem isn't his behavior. The problem is that Janelle is a bitter ex-wife using her son as a weapon. This is a classic deflection tactic. He cannot face the truth that Logan's silence is a consequence of his own actions. So he creates a villain to blame. Janelle, the stoic and independent one, is the perfect target. For Janelle, this role must be a strange and vindicating one. For years, she was the logical, pragmatic wife whose needs were often overlooked. She was the one who worked, who raised her kids with a degree of independence, who didn't demand Kody's constant emotional attention. Now, that very independence has become her greatest strength. She holds the power not because she sought it, but because Kody's destructive behavior made her the only stable point of contact. She isn't just Logan's mother, she's his firewall. And for the other children, this sends a clear message. Mom will have your back. If you need to set a boundary with your father, she will help you enforce it. She has transformed from a sister wife into a matriarch in her own right, the head of her own independent family that is thriving without Kody at its center. So the next time you see Kody complaining that he has no relationship with his older children, remember the gatekeeper. Remember the humiliation he must feel every time he has to type out a text to Janelle asking for permission to speak to his son. This is not a simple case of a son being too busy to call his dad. This is a complex psychological drama about a man whose ego is being systematically dismantled by the very people he sought to control. He has lost the war, and now he can't even get past the front gate. The power has shifted, not through loud arguments or dramatic showdowns, but through the quiet, unyielding boundary enforced by a mother protecting her son. Kody is locked out, and Janelle is holding the key. This leads us to the most explosive and speculative part of this entire saga. The final message. A blockade this absolute, this final, is rarely built overnight. A son doesn't just block his father's number out of mild annoyance. An action that drastic is usually the result of a single cataclysmic event. It's the culmination of years of smaller hurts, but it is often triggered by a final straw, a line drawn in the sand that can never be undrawn. Exclusive theories circulating among those who have followed the family for years suggest that Logan did, in fact, give Kody one final message before the silence fell. A message so direct, so cutting, that it made any further communication impossible. What was that message? While we don't have a confirmed transcript, the most persistent and compelling theory centers around one person: Robyn. The theory posits that in their final heated conversation, Logan delivered an ultimatum that cut to the very core of the family's dysfunction. The message was something to the effect of, as long as Robyn is in your life, you will not be in mine. Or perhaps even more bluntly, you chose her and her kids over us. Live with that choice, but don't expect me to be a part of it. Let's analyze the profound implications of such a statement. This is not just a son angry with his father. This is a judgment. This is Logan, the clear-eyed, logical firstborn, diagnosing the sickness that has destroyed his family and surgically removing himself from the disease. The disease, in his eyes and the eyes of many of his siblings, is the preferential treatment Kody has shown to Robyn and their children. It's not just about Kody spending more time at Robyn's house. It's about the financial resources diverted to her, the emotional energy invested in her children while his other children felt neglected, and the imposition of Robyn's rules and anxieties on the entire family, as seen most clearly during the COVID-19 pandemic. For years, Logan and his siblings watched their mothers struggle. They saw Christine's heartbreak. They saw their mother Janelle live in a trailer while Kody and Robyn resided in a de facto mansion. They saw their father miss out on important life events for his other children, like Isabel's surgery, while simultaneously being an ever-present, doting father to Robyn's kids. For a long time, they swallowed their resentment, trying to keep the peace for the sake of the family. But there comes a point where diplomacy fails. The theory of the final message suggests that Logan finally reached that point. This ultimatum would have been the ultimate act of loyalty, not to Kody, but to his own mother and the mothers of his other siblings. It was a stand of solidarity. It was Logan saying, I see what you have done. I see how you have treated my mother, Christine and Mary. I see how you have abandoned the family you built in favor of the new one you acquired. And I will not pretend it's okay. I will not participate in this charade any longer. Imagine Kody hearing those words. It would have sent him into a narcissistic rage. Why? Because it's an accusation he cannot refute. Deep down, he must know it's true. He did choose. His actions, season after season, prove it. Logan's ultimatum would have stripped away all of Kody's plausible deniability. It wasn't about the kids not following his rules or the wives having bad attitudes. It was about him, his choices, his favoritism, his failure. A narcissistic personality cannot handle this kind of direct, unassailable criticism. It shatters their carefully constructed reality. In Kody's world, he is the righteous patriarch, beset by rebellious wives and ungrateful children. Logan's final message reframes the entire story. Kody is not the victim. He is the architect of the family's destruction. He is the one who broke the covenant. This is a truth Kody cannot accept, and therefore, the person who delivered that truth must be cut out, demonized, and labeled as disloyal. It's easier for Kody to scream, "Where is the loyalty?" at the cameras than to sit with the quiet, devastating truth that his son laid at his feet. This possibility of a final Robyn-centric ultimatum also explains the intensity of the blockade. If the issue were just a simple argument, there might be room for an apology, for reconciliation. But if the issue is the fundamental structure of Kody's life, his marriage to Robyn, then there is no middle ground. Kody is not going to leave Robyn. He has invested everything in that relationship, burning every other bridge in the process. And Logan is not going to pretend to accept a family dynamic that he believes has hurt his mother and siblings so deeply. It is a true impasse, a stalemate from which there is no escape. The only option is total disengagement. This also lends more weight to Janelle's role as the gatekeeper. It's possible she is aware of this final ultimatum. Logan may have told her, "Mom, I told him, as long as he is with her, I'm done." This would explain her steely resolve in protecting Logan's boundary. She's not just blocking a nuisance caller, she's upholding the terms of her son's emotional treaty. She understands the gravity of the situation and the depth of the wound. So when Cody laments his broken family, he's conveniently leaving out the part where his son may have handed him the hammer and pointed to the exact spot where the first crack appeared. The final message wasn't the end of the conversation. It was the end of the illusion. It was the moment the unspoken became spoken. And once it was out in the open, it could never be taken back. Logan put a name to the problem, and the name was Robyn. For Cody, that was a betrayal of the highest order. For Logan, it was the only truth that mattered. The silence we see now is the long, echoing aftermath of that brutal, honest, and world-shattering final message. It's the sound of a choice being made and a father and son living with the permanent consequences. So what we are looking at is not a family feud. It is a quiet revolution, a strategic coup d'etat against a patriarch who ruled through emotional chaos. And as with any revolution, the actions of the first to stand up have a profound and lasting impact on everyone else. Logan's decision to erect the digital blockade wasn't made in a vacuum, and its effects have not been contained. But persistent insider reports suggest that Logan's actions created a contagion of courage among the older Brown children. He may have been the first to build the wall, but he laid the foundation for others to find their own escape routes. Think about the powerful validation Logan's silence provides for his siblings. For years, they were all trapped in the same cycle of trying to please an unpleasable father. They were conditioned to believe that Cody's anger was their fault, that his happiness was their responsibility. When Gabriel tearfully recounted Cody forgetting his birthday during that infamous phone call, he was articulating the pain that all the older kids felt. When Garrison, and we must speak of him with the respect and sensitivity his memory deserves, became estranged, it was part of this same tragic pattern of a father-son connection fracturing under the weight of Cody's rigid demands and emotional neglect. The tragic loss of Garrison, a son who also felt unheard and unloved by his father, casts an even darker shadow over Cody's complaints of disloyalty, highlighting the real-world consequences of his actions. Logan's move was different. While others argued, pleaded, and cried, Logan simply stopped. He removed himself from the equation. For his siblings watching from the sidelines, this was a revelation. It demonstrated a new path, a path that didn't involve endless, fruitless arguments. It showed them that they had the power to simply end the conversation. An exclusive theory that has gained traction suggests that the older siblings have a private group chat, a digital support system where they can communicate freely without the judgmental eyes of Cody or Robyn. In this space, Logan isn't seen as a disloyal son. He's seen as a pioneer. He proved it was possible to detach and survive, even thrive. This is why we see a more united front from Janelle and Christine's children in the later seasons. They are no longer isolated individuals trying to manage Cody's moods. They are a coalition. When Cody rants about their behavior, he's not just fighting one child, he's fighting a collective who have shared their experiences and validated each other's pain. Logan's blockade served as a silent, powerful endorsement of their grievances. It was the ultimate, I see you, I believe you, and I'm not playing his game anymore. This has fundamentally altered the family's power structure. Cody is no longer the hub of the wheel. The siblings have formed their own circle, leaving him on the periphery. This private rejection is the key to understanding Cody's public performance on the show. His escalating anger, his bizarre rants about loyalty and respect, his almost pathetic clinging to Robyn and their children as his only real family. It's all a desperate reaction to the control he has lost behind behind the scenes. The show is no longer a reality show for him. It is his last remaining battlefield, his propaganda machine. He uses his camera time to broadcast his version of events to the world, hoping to win in the court of public opinion because he has already been condemned in the court of his own family. When he looks into the camera and whines, "They need to respect their father," he's not really talking to the audience. He's screaming into the void, hoping the message will somehow penetrate the digital walls his sons have built. When he praises Robyn's children for their obedience, it's a passive-aggressive jab at his other kids, a way of saying, "See, I am a good father. These children prove it. The problem isn't me. It's you and your bitter mothers." It's a narrative he has to believe because the alternative, that he has driven away the majority of his children through his own toxic behavior, is too devastating for his ego to bear. His entire on-screen persona has become an exercise in damage control. But the more he tries to spin the story, the more he reveals his own desperation. His claims of victimhood sound increasingly hollow when viewers can see the stark contrast between the joyful, independent lives his estranged children are building and the tense, isolated bubble he has created with Robyn. He is the common denominator in all this family strife, yet he continues to cast himself as the sole victim. It's a performance, and it's one born of the profound powerlessness he feels every time his call to Logan fails to connect. To understand why this digital blockade is likely a life sentence, we must understand the core of the issue. This is not about a simple disagreement that can be fixed with an apology. It's about a fundamental clash of realities. For any reconciliation to occur, Cody would have to do something his personality seems utterly incapable of: take genuine accountability. A real apology would sound something like, "Logan, I failed you. I allowed my focus to shift to my new family, and in the process, I neglected you and your siblings. I disrespected your mother. I prioritized my own needs and ego over your well-being. I was wrong, and I am deeply sorry for the pain I caused." Can any of us, after watching nearly 2 decades of this man's behavior, imagine him saying those words and meaning them? It's almost impossible. An apology from Cody would require him to dismantle his entire identity. He would have to admit that he was not the righteous patriarch, but a flawed and often selfish man. He would have to admit that Robyn was not the family savior, but the catalyst for its implosion. He would have to cede control, admit fault, and demonstrate a willingness to change. This is something narcissistically inclined individuals rarely, if ever, do. Their sense of self is too fragile to withstand the blow of true accountability. It's far easier to blame everyone else, to label them as traitors and disloyal subjects, than to face the man in the mirror. This is why Logan's silence is both brilliant and permanent. He knows that no real apology will ever come. He knows that any conversation will inevitably devolve into the same old cycle of blame shifting, guilt tripping, and gaslighting. So he has opted out. He has accepted the reality that the father he needed does not exist, and he has chosen to protect his own peace rather than continue to fight for a fantasy. It is a mature, albeit heartbreaking, decision. He is not waiting for Cody to change. He is building a life that does not require his father's approval or participation. And this, ultimately, is Kody Brown's greatest punishment. The true genius of Logan's strategy, conscious or not, is that the punishment is self-inflicted. Logan isn't actively doing anything to hurt his father. He's just living his life. He's happy, he's successful, he's in a loving, stable marriage. He is building a future free from the chaos of his past. And every day that Cody is blocked, every holiday he doesn't get a call, every milestone he only hears about secondhand, is a piercing reminder of the world he has been excluded from. Logan's happy private life is a living testament to the fact that Cody is not the sun around which his children must orbit. They can and do thrive without him. The silence is a mirror, and it forces Cody to look at the wreckage of the family he claims to love so much and ask the one question he can't bear to answer. Who is responsible for this? The silence denies him an enemy to fight, a drama to orchestrate, an emotional reaction to feed on. He is left alone with his choices and their consequences. He screams, "Where is the loyalty?" into the wind, and the only answer that comes back is the deafening silence of a son who chose peace over poison. A son who knows that true loyalty is not blind obedience to a toxic parent, but loyalty to one's own well-being and mental health. The digital blockade is more than a blocked number. It's a declaration of independence. And for Cody Brown, the king of a crumbling kingdom, there is no greater punishment than being made irrelevant. This brings us to the heart of the matter, a question that extends far beyond the Brown family's cul-de-sac and into the lives of many people watching this right now. We have seen the evidence, we have explored the theories, and we have analyzed the devastating psychological impact of this familial Cold War. But the ultimate question remains, and it's a personal one. Is cutting off contact with toxic parents the right decision? Is Logan, by creating this digital blockade, doing the right thing for his mental health, even if it causes his father pain? We want to hear from you. Your experience matters. Share your story and your perspective in the comments below.